Hi, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to our channel. I'm actually really excited to do this video today. One, because this is something that I had the idea for a couple months ago, but I just haven't been able to have the time to put it together and actually sit down and film it. And two, because it's a video that doesn't have to do with Star Wars. And that just gives me a very warm and fuzzy feeling inside. So today we are going to be doing a Cobra Kai character tier list ranking thing. Table. I don't know. Today we're going to be doing a tier list for the characters from Cobra Kai, but with a little bit of a twist on the ranking criteria. I wanted to do this video for a couple reasons. Number one, I genuinely, unironically like the show Cobra Kai. I also wanted to do this video because I happen to be something of a martial artist myself. Oh, what's that doing here? It's my 2nd degree black belt, which has my name on it, so you can tell that I'm not lying about it. Can't believe I had that sitting on my couch. So weird. I actually wear this thing every day when I go to work so I can assert dominance over my new coworkers. But yeah, I am a 2nd degree black belt in Taekwondo. I've been training in martial arts for 11 years, or I had been training in martial arts for 11 years. As you can see my fabulous physique now, I do not train in Taekwondo anymore. But I did achieve the rank of 2nd degree black belt. I trained in Taekwondo and a little bit of judo and hapkido over the years as well. I trained with my older brother David, and that was just one of the greatest experiences of my life, just being able to do something so unique and interesting with him. But I wanted to kind of like put an interesting twist on my character criteria for the tier list, to not just talk about them as characters, but to talk about whether or not I think I could beat them in a fight. I felt like it was a good idea at the time. I'm starting to think as I say it out loud that it doesn't sound quite as spectacular as in my head. Spoiler alert! Spoiler! Spoiler! If you haven't seen Cobra Kai, and also this is all in very good fun, so all of the Cobra Kai cast that obviously is going to be watching this video, please don't come beat me up, because I will drop into a fetal position and deny that I said anything if you confront me on the street. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Cobra Kai is a television show on Netflix and a spin-off of the Karate Kid series from the 80s and 90s. Now, I knew literally nothing about the Karate Kid before watching this show, and I actually thought when I saw this on my Netflix homepage that Cobra Kai was a military drama, because I thought Cobra Kai was the antagonist group from G.I. Joe, another franchise that happened to have evil snakes as the villain mascot. But once I watched Cobra Kai and I actually understood that it was about karate, I found myself really enjoying the show. I mean, it's not perfect by any means, and it's not necessarily that complicated, but it is a genuinely enjoyable and fun and engaging show, and I really like it. Cobra Kai is really interesting because, like I said, it's a spin-off of a very popular film franchise, and it exists in a current era of television and film where it seems like literally every show and every film is either a spin-off, a reboot, a remake, a sequel, a prequel, or an adaptation of some already pre-existing source material. And don't get me wrong, there are some really great remakes and spin-offs, etc., out there, and there's some that even might have surpassed the original source material that it was based on. But it just seems like today it's every single show and every single film, and none of it feels like it's being made for any other reason than to just fill space. I don't know, maybe I'm being cynical about this, but lately it just seems like all of these spin-offs and shit just feel like very hollow and lifeless versions of the source material that made them successful in the first place, and that literally there's no other reason for why they're being made other than to just say that it's a reference to the original source material. And no, I'm not just talking about Star Wars, but I mean... You know what? No, I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna discuss this for the 3rd time on my channel. I'm not gonna fucking go there. Okay, so let's continue. Cobra Kai kind of feels very different to me from these other examples because while yes, it is a spin-off, at the same time, it feels like there's an actual purpose of making the show. I'm not saying it's an essential story that needs to be told, and without it, Karate Kid doesn't make any sense, but the way that the plot develops and the way that the characters are written, the whole story of Cobra Kai just feels like a story worth telling. It's not overly complicated where it only functions for the purposes of referencing things for diehard fans, and it's not this convoluted lore of some of the Marvel and Star Wars like stories, but at the same time it has plenty of things that would make even the most dedicated fans of the Karate Kid feel a sense of nostalgia and feel validation and satisfaction with the story. And plus it's just fun, and not a lot of TV is fun anymore. So like I said, Cobra Kai is not a perfect show, but it's a really good show. It essentially tells a story of the 2 main martial artists from the first Karate Kid movie, Johnny Lawrence of Cobra Kai and Daniel Larusso of Miyagi-Do, some 30 years after their All-Valley Championship fight at the end of the first film. The show adds a lot of complexity and dimension to these characters as adults, complexity and dimension that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get from one film, and it makes them both more flawed but relatable versions of their teenage selves in the first film, and sets up a really great story of Johnny and Danny taking on the role as teachers to a new generation of karate students. There's a lot you kind of have to buy into in terms of the plot with the show. There's a lot you kind of have to forgive with Cobra Kai, the most notable things being that 1, the teenagers in an upper middle class suburb of Southern California care very deeply about karate and start karate gang wars with each other, and 2, that everyone absolutely fucking loves and understands every single 80s reference under the sun. But the show doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's actually very self-referential and self-aware of the fact that it does this. But the show doesn't take itself too seriously, and it does a really good job of balancing the old source material while also expanding upon it with its own set of memorable characters and plot. Cobra Kai is also a bit of a surreal experience for me as a former martial artist, because there's a lot of things that I can actually relate to when watching Cobra Kai, even though I practice Taekwondo and this is a show about karate. I practiced Taekwondo for over 11 years, and one of the mantras at my school was that Taekwondo is about the practice of protecting yourself and your loved ones with self-defense using your bare hands and bare feet. We're not here using nunchucks and weapons and shit like these motherfuckers were. I guess you could say my school kind of aligned with the philosophy of Miyagi-Do, but I would say more so like the Miyagi-Do with Mr. Miyagi and not the dumb shit that Daniel Larusso preaches in Cobra Kai. But I will say that the one thing that gets me absolutely every single time I watch this show is that everyone bows to each other in like every possible scenario whatsoever, even though there's physically not enough room to bow, while making eye contact with each other, which is just absolutely 100% not correct in any culture and any martial arts that you will ever practice whatsoever. It's actually massively disrespectful to bow and look at someone when you do, because looking down and averting eye contact when you bow is a sign of respect and trust in your adversary. And I know that Mr. Miyagi tells Daniel in the original Karate Kid film to not look away when you're bowing to somebody and that you have to make eye contact.
Look, always look away.
And in any other situation, Miyagi cannot do any wrong, but this is the one scenario where it is just objectively fucking correct, and it literally destroys a piece of my soul every time I see it. Okay, I feel like a lot better getting that off my chest. I feel like I've been holding on to that for a very long time. So on with the tier list. So a couple ground rules before we get started, just to kind of establish the criteria of what we're dealing with and where I'm coming from with my ranking. First of all, I didn't make this tier list. It was one that was just on this tier maker website. I didn't put it together, but it says in the instructions that the character list is updated through season 4, which is, you know, the most recent season that's been released for Cobra Kai, so I'm trusting that everybody that's important is going to be on there. So if there's somebody that's important that's not in there, then, you know, don't shoot the messenger. I also am not going to be talking about Cobra Kai characters that were also in the Karate Kid and evaluating what they did in the Karate Kid, if that makes sense. I'm just going to be looking at their performances and their abilities in Cobra Kai seasons 1 through 4. The films took place 20 to 30 years ago, and so the discrepancy between what somebody could do then versus now, like, there's a lot of really old people in this show, so I think that makes a big difference as to like what someone's capabilities could be. So we're just gonna be focusing on Cobra Kai. In terms of my capabilities as a martial artist, yeah, no, I'm just kidding, I'm sorry. I would say I was a pretty good martial artist. Like I said, I trained for 11 years. I trained with my brother. Once you reach the degree of black belt, there's quite a shift in expectations for what you have to bring to the table and what you need to do. It was pretty rigorous, it was pretty demanding, and we would train like 5 to 6 times a week for several hours a day. It was pretty intense. I would say my strengths as a martial artist throughout my time training there were things that had to do with technique, speed, flexibility. I was really good with things that required precision. I was not very strong initially as a fighter because I was a small girl, and because I was a high rank but a young age, I always had to be like put up against adults, so I would just like get my ass kicked out of the ring when I would do sparring. I became a pretty good sparrer, but my brother was always just like exceptional at that, and so it was kind of always his thing. But I would say that I could definitely hold my own. You know, I was pretty scrappy. I feel like I was a pretty well-rounded martial artist overall. I would definitely say brute strength was not ever one of my positive qualities, even when I became an adult training in Taekwondo, but I would say that I definitely was able to get out of situations just knowing how to use technique properly and how to evaluate a situation and respond accordingly. So yeah, let me just get onto this website here. I'm gonna put the middle category as like it's a draw. Taking one step up and down, I'll say it was fair fight, but oops, I win, I lose, easily lose, easily win, I would die. And then what should the top category be? I don't want to say they would die because, you know, I don't want to like scare too many people. Get a body bag? Get a body bag! Yeah! No, that's probably too much.
gonna cry?
We have our categories, let's get into this.
Drowning is for pussies, all right? Don't be a pussy. Use your leg.
I love Johnny Lawrence. I think he's great. In order for Cobra Kai to work, they really had to recontextualize who Johnny Lawrence was from the Karate Kid and make him more of an understanding, relatable character now, because in Karate Kid, he was an asshole. Like, he was the quintessential 1980s bully who would just like push you down a flight of stairs because you had a goofy looking shirt on. And we had to kind of take that character, not necessarily contradict or do something to unwrite that character, but maybe just recontextualize why he was like that and give us a reason to now care about and connect with him 30 years later. And I think the show did a really fantastic job of doing that and giving him students that he can connect to and develop and grow with, and having karate re-enter his life, but not necessarily in the really intense and negative way that it was when he was a kid, but just kind of reinventing what karate means to him now as an adult, as a teacher, in order to help it become a positive influence for his students as well. In terms of Johnny Lawrence's fighting style, he's very aggressive. It's all offense all the time, and while I think that that can be a good thing if you're just trying to win a fight with somebody, that Johnny Lawrence is just maybe doesn't always have the best like judgment call with things. But he also did like fight a bunch of teenagers without warming up, while wearing jeans, without doing karate for like 30 years or something. If he can do that, if anybody can fight somebody effectively while wearing jeans and not stretching first, I feel like I would not stand a chance.
Something I can help you with, bud?
You have a Habsburg jawline. I've never seen one quite so perfect.
I would absolutely die. There's just no way. He was in Vietnam, he's seen some shit, he's also like 75 and he's just throwing people around left and right. Like, there's absolutely no way I would die. Okay, this guy, we're gonna call him bully number 1. This was one of the people that Johnny like threw around in the first episode because they were like throwing Miguel up against his car. I literally don't know what his name is. I would say I would win easily because he seems stupid and he doesn't seem like he knows how to fight. He's just kind of like tall and large, and I feel like I could probably take advantage of that.
The further we get as a team, the tighter the vices around Cobra Kai's metaphorical ball.
I actually like Devin a lot as a character. I think she's great. I love the idea of her just being someone really involved in extracurriculars. I think she was a good addition to season 4. So in terms of whether she could beat me in a fight, on the one hand, she'd only been training for like 6 weeks by the time they made it to the All Valley tournament. I definitely would have like a height advantage on her and a skill advantage. I would say at this point in the series, I would still win pretty handily, but if we gave her any more time, she would absolutely, like, I probably would fear her most out of everybody in the show.
Aw, I think your cat wants to come in. Here, kitty, kitty.
I didn't know you had a cat.
We don't.
I personally relate to Bert because I would be the person if I heard a cat meow randomly. I wouldn't ask any questions. I would be like, oh, there's a cat here, and I would just like wander away to go find the cat. In terms of whether I could beat him in a fight, I would say I would probably make him cry. I never really see him like doing well or really landing a hit, and if he does, it's against somebody else who's like pretty weak as a fighter. This guy, I think he looks like Billy Joel, so I'm just gonna call him Billy Joel.
Forgive me, Father. For what?
Him, honestly, when they had that whole like storyline where Johnny reunites with his former Cobra Kai pals, I just kind of fast forwarded through it because I was like, I don't fucking care. In the little snippets that I remember seeing of him, he seemed like a pretty competent fighter, sure, but he also has devoted himself to the Lord. If you're like evaluating whether or not John Kreese or Jesus is going to make you stronger as a fighter, I would definitely go with John Kreese. So I'm gonna put him in fair fight, but I would win.
Stop! You want some of this?
So AISHA, I love as a character. I feel like they kind of ran out of things to do with her after season 2, but I wish that she was still in the show because I like her a lot. I think the thing that's so terrifying about AISHA is on the one hand, we see her just like bodying people, but she's also very rational and very logical, and I think a lot of people, their weaknesses in the show is the fact that they're highly emotional and they just act immediately without thinking, and she's usually the one that's rational, the voice of reason, the one that's like trying to get people to work together and like just not act like insane lunatics. And I think that kind of cool level-headedness, also with her just like slamming people into lockers like it's nothing, I think she would be a very, very scary person to fight. So I would say I would easily lose. Mr. Army guy, I don't know much about him other than he's a jerk, so I'm going to put him in I would die, because Vietnam people, like, they've seen some shit, you don't want to fuck with them. So this lady, emotionally, she would absolutely destroy me in every conceivable way. Physically, I would probably say gonna cry. I would just cut that out. Miguel's mother, I don't remember what her name is, but I love Miguel's mom. She seems like such a wonderful person. In terms of whether I could beat her in a fight, She doesn't seem to like karate, she's a pacifist and all that shit, so I would definitely win, but I would never want to like actually hurt her because I love her so much. I hate Kyler. Kyler is so good though at just being like the dumb, ridiculously aggressive for no reason bully, and I think he does a really good job of owning that. In terms of whether I would win in a fight, he seems like to be a pretty good fighter. He made it to like the final round or something, or the final 4 or 8 in the All Valley, and he seems to be a very competent fighter and athlete, but he's really fucking stupid, and I feel like he's super overconfident for no reason, and I feel like I could probably take advantage of that, but I'm also like weak as shit, so I don't know. I feel like I would definitely lose, but I feel like it would probably be a fair fight. Like, it's so funny to see Chozen wearing like a nice leisurely Hawaiian shirt in season 3 because he like actually tried to murder people in the second Karate Kid movie. Chozen still scares the hell out of me. I like the fact that he's back. It seems like he's going to play a bigger role in season 5, but him coming back in season 3 just felt kind of random to me, but I like if we're gonna kind of make it a thing where he's going to work with Daniel. In terms of whether I would win in a fight, there's no fucking way. Chozen could probably kill KREESE, and that says a lot, so let's do that.
Now.
I don't remember what this kid's name is, but he always seems like a really nice person, like also kind of like AISHA, where he doesn't really want to fight, but then when he has to, he just like levels people. Say he would probably, well, if I'm like in a sparring rink and there's no textbooks nearby, I would say fair fight, but I would win. Because he doesn't seem to have a lot of like speed and agility. He's a lot stronger than me, but I feel like I could probably give it a fair fight.
We have a new initiative called Hugs, Not Hits. It's like DARE, except it actually works.
So your solution is to hug kids?
Actually, they would hug each other.
I would easily kill this bitch. She is the just quintessential clueless adult in all of these TV shows to kind of justify these kids needing to take karate. She literally, there is a scene where she literally was like, hey guys, they're like sitting in the cafeteria at school, and she's like, okay guys, by the way, there's a kid with a lip deformity in this class, and I'm not gonna name names, but you guys gotta stop making fun of him because his mom called and asked for everyone to stop bullying him. And it's like, who the fuck do you think we will be talking about? It's like it's like her face is just so stupid and clueless. She would just be done.
Daniel with an L.
She really didn't have that much of a purpose other than, I guess, to give closure to Johnny, and I guess to kind of allow him to move on and date Miguel's mom. As a character like she really just was kind of, it felt very shoehorned in. In terms of whether I could beat her in the fight, I feel like I would easily win. Where'd she go? Oh god, no. She seems like someone who probably does like power yoga or Pilates or something at home, but I don't necessarily think that would help her with me. This, I don't know who this is, but I think this is probably someone's like dumb crony. I think it was one of Robbie's friends. I don't know, but I think he seems dumb, and I feel like I would probably easily beat him in a fight.
Listen, it was a really close match, but if you want to get technical, I kicked his face.
Daniel freaking Larusso. Okay. So I promised my college roommate that I would sit down and talk about why Daniel Larusso is one of the worst characters in the history of existence. Rather than sitting here and try to ramble about it for like 30 minutes and just have an incoherent mess of my thoughts on him, I'm going to just let future Megan roll the footage and just explain why in a more coherent way. I hate Daniel. Okay, let me just walk that one back a little bit because I feel like that was a little toxic saying that out loud. How about let's just say that Daniel is the worst character in all of Cobra Kai and the Karate Kid. Perfect. Okay, so I know that's a little hyperbolic of me to say that Daniel is the worst person in the franchise when there are literally characters that commit felonious assaults, attempted murders, aggravated rioting, and too many instances of property damage and breaking and entering to count. That being said, Daniel Larusso, I don't know, he just fucking sucks, okay? And that's not a criticism of the show or Ralph Macchio necessarily, because I think the way that they wrote Daniel is actually really great for where the Karate Kid version of him would be 30 years later. It's just the reality that Daniel is an insufferable prick by nature and not enough people are talking about it. Daniel is condescending, self-righteous, hypocritical, temperamental, judgmental, stubborn, arrogant, pretentious. Am I forgetting anything? Oh yeah, he started a karate gang war in Southern California where a bunch of teenagers. Okay, but in all seriousness, what makes Daniel Larusso such an insufferable human being? Glad you asked, let's get into this shit. Well, When we first meet Daniel at the beginning of Cobra Kai, he's basically the exact opposite of Johnny Lawrence some 30 years after the events of the first Karate Kid movie. Daniel has it made. He's rich, he has his own successful business, a wife that is far too good for him, a family, a great house, and for some reason, people in the area still recognize him for his karate endeavors as a child. It's almost like Cobra Kai is suggesting that winning a karate tournament at an age where you're not legally old enough to buy cigarettes has some correlation to the success you'll have later on in life. So yeah, Daniel has it made. Until he runs into his high school karate rival Johnny Lawrence, who decides that he wants to reopen Cobra Kai and become its sensei. My initial reaction is, so fucking what? Who cares? Like, I get it, I understand Daniel hates Cobra Kai for what they did to him in high school. I mean, yeah, I watched Karate Kid. It sucks. Daniel was treated like crap, and the Cobra Kai kids were just irrationally, unreasonably, like, terrible to him. I get it. That was also 30 years ago, Daniel. You don't think people can change over 30 years? And also, Johnny, like, apologized to you at the end of the Karate Kid film. Literally, after they finish fighting, he turns to him and congratulates him and apologizes. And also, Johnny looks like he was waterboarded in sewage and then run over by one of Daniel's fancy Mercedes-Benz. Clearly he needs a break in life. Maybe he's just trying to run a business, get his life together, get back into something that means a lot to him. I mean, this could be a positive influence for someone who has been mistaken as homeless several times throughout this series.
I'm not homeless.
But what does Daniel do in this situation? Either one, he acts like a rational adult and says, wow, you know, I really hated Cobra Kai when I was a kid, but maybe this will be a good thing for Johnny to turn his life around, and this will literally not impact my life whatsoever, so maybe if I just let this go, nothing bad will happen to me. Or spirals into a fit of absolute madness and insanity and proceeds to dedicate his life towards tearing down Cobra Kai and training an army of teenagers to go toe-to-toe with Johnny in an all-out karate war that terrorizes the entire city. I'm gonna let you guys guess which one he goes with. And from there, the entire show essentially centers around Daniel and Johnny having this revived rivalry. And I know that Johnny has his part in it too. I mean, believe me, he's done some messed up stuff as well. But Daniel's character is just so fucking pretentious and holier than thou that it makes it even more unlikable somehow. And Johnny at least owns his shit. He's trying to grow as a person, but he never walks around thinking that he's perfect. Daniel walks around acting like he's God's gift to karate and car sales. Daniel constantly tells Johnny throughout the series that he needs to be thinking before acting, and basically that he's an irrational hothead that does whatever he wants without thinking of the consequences. And while sure, that may be true in some cases for Johnny, I can't help but wonder, Daniel, have you been hearing yourself the past 4 seasons? Because you do the same shit. Daniel literally acts without thinking constantly and does whatever the fuck he wants because he thinks he's justified in his opinion. This is the same man that convinced Johnny's landlords to double rent for all the tenants in order to squeeze Johnny out of the business, but doesn't think or consider the fact that there are literally so many other tenants in that strip mall, and that by increasing the rent, they also would be out of a place to do their business as well.
You're telling me that the whole Zarkarian dinner was just some convoluted plot so you could raise the rent on your childhood karate rival?
I think you're oversimplifying things.
Well, what about the other stores in the mall? I mean, did you even consider them?
But it doesn't fucking matter because Daniel is good and Cobra Kai is bad. This is also the man that criticizes Johnny for being insanely aggressive and hot-headed, but he, one, totally freaked out on Johnny when he found out that his daughter Sam was staying at Johnny's apartment because she got drunk at a party the night before. 2, snapped his son's iPad over his knee because he was angry at him. Kick a rival car salesman because he was teasing him. Flew to Japan to fix the business that he essentially ran into the ground, but stayed several extra weeks to confront another high school karate rival while his family was literally falling apart. Daniel also likes to bait Johnny into reacting in a very aggressive manner by calling Johnny stupid and dumb and insulting the way that he does karate and the way that he lives his life, knowing that Johnny is going to react, and then basically throws up his arms in the air and says, oh, Johnny is impossible, what else is new? And listen, I know that Johnny is not a perfect person either, I'm not saying that, but it just seems like he likes to bait Johnny into reacting in a certain way and then likes to take the moral high ground and act like the more rational person and the victim in the situation. That shit really bothers me too. I cannot say this enough, Amanda Larusso deserves better. This woman has to basically run the house by herself, run the business by herself, pretend to smile and not be horrifically embarrassed whenever Daniel puts on his little headband and talks about karate drama. But beyond that, in general, Daniel constantly makes it clear to his family that he will flat out refuse to prioritize family in any way, shape, or form over karate. He abandons his wife at work on several occasions and cancels meetings, and when she's frustrated with him over prioritizing karate, Daniel buys her off with gifts, and when that doesn't work, he gets annoyed that he can't just buy away the situation situation and push it under the rug. Daniel is also a bad father to both of his children, and yes, I mean both of his children. He openly insults his son and talks about how stupid and lazy he is, and clearly prioritizes Sam over Anthony without even trying to hide it. He also takes in Robbie, not his son, and treats him better than his own actual child. And yeah, Anthony kind of sucks, but also if my dad were doing that to me too, I would be a brat too. I would take his money on his Apple Card as well. I would take Daniel for all that he's worth.
English muffin? What is this, Afghanistan? I'll take a burrito.
Daniel doesn't even try to bond with Anthony over any of his interests and just thinks that it's all stupid because it isn't karate. Anthony even has to tell Daniel that it's actually really alienating and hurtful to hear Daniel constantly talk about karate and Mr. Miyagi, because these are things that Anthony can't relate to because he didn't know Mr. Miyagi and because he was really young when he passed away. And just because Daniel pays attention to Sam does not mean that he treats her much better than Anthony. Don't get it twisted. Daniel only gives a shit about Sam because she likes karate, but not just any karate. Oh no, his karate. The right karate. Because when Sam doesn't want to train in karate anymore in season 3 after being attacked at school and then having resulting issues with trauma, Daniel chooses to 1. Ignore the very clear boundary that Sam sets for him when she says that she doesn't want to train anymore because it's very difficult to overcome that trauma. 2. Secretly teaches her karate anyways. And 3. Makes a whole conversation about himself by talking about how he stood up to an enemy during an all-valley tournament match. And then when Sam decides that she does want to train in karate again in season 4, and she actually takes a liking to Johnny's style of Eagle Fang karate, heaven forbid, Daniel judges the ever-loving fuck out of her and says that she's doing the wrong thing and tries to shame her for being too aggressive. Like, she's literally fighting in a tournament at the end of season 4 and gets aggressive during a round and actually wins. You know, the whole fucking point of being there. And Daniel is like dogging her on the sidelines for being more aggressive in her style than what he would want to do. Do you understand how a fucking tournament works? Do you have to strike at someone to get points and win? You can't just circle around like you're teaching your students to do in Miyagi-Do. Which brings me to my last and final point. Let's just first address the facts that I'm pretty sure that Daniel isn't even a real black belt. Like, I know it sounds like a really petty thing to bring up, but if you recall, Ali stole his black belt at the registration table in the first Karate Kid film in order to allow Daniel to enter the tournament because only black belts were allowed, and I'm pretty sure Daniel was like a white belt or some shit. So I don't actually trust anything that Daniel says when it comes to karate, but whatever, we'll just let that go. Secondly, Daniel constantly says that he restarted Miyagi-Do because it was all about the kid and all about teaching them to accept themselves and to live a balanced and healthy lifestyle. Except no, that's not fucking why you did it, because you clearly do not give a shit about any of your kids whatsoever. First of all, you make them do manual labor instead of teaching them, and you also don't listen to them when they clearly tell you that they want to learn both Eagle Fang karate as well as Miyagi-Do karate. And I understand that Mr. Miyagi taught Daniel karate in the Karate Kid film by having him do chores in order to learn muscle memory and whatever. And in that case, yeah, it kind of made sense because Daniel didn't know like anything about karate, and associating blocks and techniques with things that you do in real life might be able to help relate to things and make them make more sense in the karate context. But here Daniel is like having these students who have been training with him for a year wax his card. At that point, just teach them the technique, because at a certain point you're not going to react to someone striking you with a, oh yeah, that reminds me of the time I waxed my sensei's car, let me just like throw one of those out. You have to associate the muscle memory with something that would trigger it, aka practicing proper technique. You also aren't going to be throwing out perfect blocks and shit when you're sanding a deck or painting a house. You actually at some point have to do real karate, not this child labor bullshit that you're doing. Daniel's core philosophy about Miyagi-Do and karate is also just as nonsensical as his teaching method, and this is coming from someone who, like I said, trained in Taekwondo at a school that also embraced self-defense over everything. But Daniel takes it to like idiotic extremes by encouraging his students to never ever strike, basically, or at least wait until your opponent stabs you 7 or 8 times before thinking about punching to stop them. And I know they play this up to a severe extent as to serve as a contrast between Cobra Kai's philosophy of throat punching anyone who looks at you wrong, but practically speaking, it's just fucking stupid. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's not really how this works. One of us has to be provoked. Hey! Provoked yet?
Self-defense to me, you know, someone who's an actual black belt, means learning to protect yourself and others with the training that you endure, and that you should always be cognizant of the fact that martial arts teaches you to hurt people. You should always be aware that any action you take has a consequence. So use the training very responsibly and only when needed. But Daniel is out here teaching his students that basically that they should wait until someone attacks them before doing anything, which in certain cases could actually lead them to be in potentially very dangerous circumstances. If you get yourself or someone else hurt in process, and the only thing you can hang your hat on at the end of the day is, oh, at least I didn't strike first, then what's the fucking point of knowing self-defense to begin with? So yeah, That was a lot. Okay, let's get back to the video. Like I said, Miyagi-Do is kind of similar to the philosophy of how I trained in Taekwondo. Completely understand his philosophy in that regard. I think Daniel takes it way too far to the point where it's very unrealistic. However, he's undeniably still in very good shape. So I'm not gonna try to be a hero here. I'm not gonna try to like put myself too high up. I would say I would easily lose.
I'll go.
Oh god, there's a young John, oh my god, there's a young John Kreese for arthritis. I think there should be a bottom category where it would be like I would just cease to exist.
Disproportionate limbs.
I have to just give Dimitri credit in season 4 because for the first couple seasons of Cobra Kai, I fucking hated Dimitri. I thought he was the most insufferable human being in the history of existence. But in season 4, he not only became a better fighter, he became more confident in himself, and also he wore a fucking like Pac-Man suit to prom, which if I knew that was even an option for myself to just like make a Pac-Man themed outfit for prom, my life would have just been so much different. So in terms of whether he would beat me in a fight, I don't know. I think he's definitely gotten better, but he's still like not that coordinated and not that confident in his abilities. He definitely has like the long limbs like I do, so he could probably zone me a little bit. I would say I would easily win. Sorry, Dimitri.
It is on!
I love Hawk. I actually think he's probably one of the most well-written new characters in this series. His whole story of trying to accept himself and figure out who he is and not let others define his identity for him, I think that's so effective. It's so great. There are times where he's just such an asshole and such an unlikable person, but the way that the story writes him and how he gets to that point is all in service of this journey of him trying to figure out who he is, and then he decides he doesn't want to be like that and then becomes a good person again, and it's all just done very well, and I think it really speaks to the overall message that Cobra Kai is trying to deliver. I also think Hawk has one of the most distinct fighting styles. His is always very like rigid and intense and almost like staccato with the way that he does things, but it also looks very realistic. In terms of whether he would beat me in a fight, he would kill me, hands down, no way. I think he's probably one of the best fighters as well in the entire series. This is the computer guy. I'd probably easily beat him.
Here's the beach ball.
Miguel is another character that I really like a lot. He's probably like right under Eli in terms of favorite characters of the series. What I love so much about Miguel is his relationship with Johnny, their relationship together and how they grow not only as a teacher and student but as friends and as this like father-son bond. It really is the emotional heart of the show. In terms of a fighter, there's no way I can actually compete against him. He is a medical marvel. He paralyzed himself and then 6 months later made it to the final round of the All Valley tournament, and I just can't compete with that. My spine could never.
Should have stayed in Cobra Kai. Could have been a badass.
In terms of like whether he can fight, I mean, he seems to kind of hold his own in some fights. Like he's got pretty good endurance, but he also seems to get knocked out of the tournaments pretty quickly, and a lot of people seem to beat his ass a lot. I would say I would easily win. Daniel Larusso's mother, I probably would win. She seems like she's got pretty bad arthritis, so I would say I'd make her cry. Piper. We don't really get to know that well until season 4, but we find out that she's a gymnast, and she's got a lot of like acrobatic tricks that she tries to use when she fights, and I feel like that's a lot of gimmicks. Like they really don't need to do that shit. I would say that I could probably have a fair fight, but that I would win because she hasn't been doing karate for very long, and she also just seems like anytime anything doesn't go her way, like especially when she was fighting Samantha, she just didn't know what to do. So you gotta learn how to adapt, bitch. I don't know who this is. I literally don't know who this is. Who is that? I have no idea. Anyways, let's move on.
Oh, we've been here 5 minutes and I already see 10 people I hate.
Amanda, first of all, deserves so much better. She's always the one that's like pointing out the fact that everything that's happening is ridiculous and stupid. And
yeah, you two seem to have this pretty well in hand. It's a normal Saturday afternoon, a couple of grown men about to kick each other into a pool. You know, as much as I would love to watch you and your childhood karate rival duke it out, I kind of don't want to get any blood on the patio. So what do you say we try to resolve this over some breakfast instead?
I'm also remembering the fact that she smacked John Kreese in the face and got a restraining order put out against her. Probably one of the most baller things I've ever seen in my entire life. In terms of whether I could beat her in a fight, I'd probably say fair fight. Because she does seem like she's in really good shape, but she also just like seems to not be interested in karate at all. She did slap John Kreese, and that does scare me because I would not slap John Kreese. I just would not do that. Louie. All right, Louie, I'm sorry.
You ain't hustling no point at my mark.
I'm not hustling.
I'm not homeless.
We don't have a lot of data on her. I would say I would probably win. I don't know this woman's name, but she was in the second Karate Kid movie. I would probably beat her easily. She seemed very nice, but just, you know, it is what it is.
Oh, that new kid. No, he's terrible. Very unmotivated. You gotta keep explaining stuff to him. I'm pretty sure he's got a head injury.
I love him because he's also kind of like Amanda, where he's just pointing out how ridiculous and stupid all of this is. Whether or not I think I could beat him in a fight, I absolutely could. He wears too many three-piece suits at a car dealership for me to not.
Who the hell are you? Wait, are you the son? What'd you do, switch over to Whopper Juniors?
Let's go to Growth Spurt. Dipshit.
Still a piece of crap.
Anthony LaRusso, yeah, I would definitely beat this kid up. He's like 13. This guy, absolutely.
Give me Butterfinger.
I mean, I think Robbie's kind of an annoying character. Like I feel bad for Robbie sometimes, but I'm also just like, you also like paralyzed somebody, and I feel like you kind of really didn't understand how bad that was, or the fact that like maybe you shouldn't have done that. But in terms of fighting, yeah, he would easily beat. He and like Eli were defying laws of gravity when they were fighting in their final round. They're like, I just can't do that. I'm not at that level yet, I guess. This guy, I would probably win because he does seem athletic, but he also seems pretty stupid.
Refer to me as Stingray.
Yeah, all right, Chubbs. He's on your team.
Stingray, oh my god, he would probably beat me. Mr. Other Car Dealership, I would eat him for breakfast. Carrie Underwood. Okay, I have never been more confident of anything in my life that I would crush Carrie Underwood in a sparring match. This is the random drugstore person. I would probably beat him too. Or Johnny Lawrence's stepfather. Rest in peace, Ed Asner. No offense, but I would kick that ass.
Come and get it, dickhead.
Definitely. For similar reasons of Bert, he's just smaller and I don't think he's as skilled. Robbie Keene's mother. Absolutely. Get in there. Oh, Sean. Sean, no. Sean is like, Sean beat Robbie up. He would probably kill me. I actually really like Kenny as a character because I totally thought, and I'm sure a lot of people did, that he was just going to join Miyagi-Do or Eagle Fang because he was getting bullied, but the fact that they had him join Cobra Kai and then he became kind of like an unhinged bully himself, not even a bully, but just kind of like very angry and hostile and impulsive. In terms of whether I could beat him in fight, I feel like I would easily win. He does seem to have good talent, but he is smaller, he is younger, less experienced, and I think I just have a height advantage, and he also just seems like he doesn't really know what to do in a situation when he's getting overpowered. Young Terry Silver, absolutely. Young Terry Silver would just...
Come on, guys, can't we all just get along?
Absolutely. She's a pacifist. She doesn't like fighting. So.
You want her hopping in the backseat, smearing shit everywhere and slicing her throats? Be my guy.
Yasmine would absolutely destroy me emotionally and mentally. She would probably target and identify every single one of my insecurities and then ones that I didn't even know that I had, and then just like decimate me, and I would just be like in a fetal position sobbing on the floor without her laying a finger on me. But if we duct tape her mouth shut, I feel like I would absolutely snap her in half. So we're gonna put her over here.
Tori. With a Y.
Tori, interesting. I don't like Tori very much. I understand she's had a hard life. I understand that she's had some like bad things happen to her and she feels resentful because she thinks everyone else has things handed to her. But like, Tori's crazy. Like, Tori started a school fight because she thought her boyfriend cheated on her, which resulted in that boyfriend getting paralyzed and then several people getting severely injured. It's like, yeah, I get, like I said, yeah, I get she's had a tough life and they always try to drive that point home and she just feels like she doesn't belong because she's always just the one that hasn't had anything easy in life, whatever. But like, so many of these people in the show haven't had easy things happen to them. Like, get over yourself. I don't know. In terms of whether I think I could beat her in a fight, I do think that she is very talented and she has been training for some time, but I do think she's very impulsive. I would say it would probably be a draw, to be honest with you. She's definitely got a lot of anger, but I think that sometimes can like kick you in the ass a little bit if you're just not focused on what you're doing and you just let other things take advantage. She'd probably think I was a privileged bitch or something, so. As a character, like, Samantha's just, she's fine. She's whatever. Kind of entitled, and she always talks about herself like she's God's gift to martial arts. I would say we're probably also evenly matched, so I'll put her in draw because she and Tori seem like they're pretty on par with each other. Actually, no, I feel like I'd probably win. Well, no, I'll put her here. This guy, I don't remember what this guy is, but I know he's the one that said get him a body bag.
Get him a body bag!
I know he had cancer and he was like still beating the shit out of people in a bar. I would say fair fight, but I would still win. But you know, he does have cancer and is very sick and weakly, so.
Bullshit. I prove my loyalty.
Terry Silver's scary as shit. He's trained in martial arts, he's insane, and he also has a ton of money. So literally he could just throw cash at whatever problem he wants to have solved and just like pay enough money to make it whatever he wants it to be. And that's particularly scary. As a fighter, there's no way. Like he's like throwing people around no matter what. Like he's just so scary. I don't know who this is either. Who is this? I have no idea. Moving on. Grandma's going down. That, I literally don't know who these two people are. But other than that, I feel like this is a pretty decent lineup. I feel pretty confident in the fact that, you know, I have a lot of people up here in these categories that I could win in a fight, and not that many down here, and the ones I do have down here are legitimately terrifying human beings. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and let me know down in the comments what you think of my tier list, and if you have any suggestions of what I could do next, please let me know. In the meantime, I'm gonna go pay attention to my cat, otherwise she's gonna murder me in my sleep. So bye.